If you don't know, my name is Desandra Daly. I'm a first year medical student at All Saints University School of Medicine, Dominica. And this channel is really about documenting my journey through medical school and talking about medical related stuff. Hopefully, I can get to that as well. But today, I want to talk about, since it's February and it's Black History Month, I want to talk about some Jamaicans who have contributed to medicine or who became medical pioneers who are from Jamaica. So I'm going to be covering about 9 people, but in today's video I'm just going to be covering 3. So I'm going to be splitting it up in about 3 people per video. So this is a 3-part series and this is the first part. So today we're going to be talking about 3 people who have contributed to medicine. The first person is, if you see me looking down every minute, it's my laptop. I'm reading off my laptop because I don't remember everything that I wrote down. So the 3 people today are Dr. Yvette Francis McBarnette, Mary Seacole, and Dr. Cicely Williams I'm going to be talking about. So starting off with Dr. Yvette Francis McBarnette. She was born in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, on May 10th, 1926. And she moved to the US, she moved to New York at a very young age, and she grew up in Harlem. Harlem is in New York? Yes. She grew up in Harlem, New York. And she enrolled in Hunter College and she graduated in 3.5 years with a Bachelor of Arts, a BA in physics, but she was too young to attend medical school, or even to work in a laboratory. She was too young to do that. So instead, she got her MA, which is a Master's of Arts in chemistry at Columbia University. And then she went to Yale's medical school, and she did all of this under the age of 19. So she started Yale Medical School at 19, but she went to Hunter's College and she went to Columbia University under the age of 19. So this lady is smart. She was really the person who not really came up with the concept, but she was the person who pioneered the concept of using antibiotics to treat sickle cell anemia in children. So what she did, she used antibiotics, specifically penicillin, to treat sickle cell anemia in her pediatric patients, which are children, because she is a pediatrician. She was working in a clinic at the Jamaica Hospital Medical Center in Queens, New York. And this is where she really put her treatment into effect, and she used this treatment for 15 years and it was very effective, and it was also published and confirmed in the New England Medical Journal of Medicine in 1993. And then during the Nixon administration, President Nixon of the United States, she was on the White House Advisory Committee that made recommendations leading to the 1972 National Sickle Cell Anemia Control Act, which provided funding for screening, counseling, education, and research relating to sickle cell anemia. So with her research that she had done to show that, hey, antibiotics can treat sickle cell anemia in children, she was able to bring this act into effect to help people advance research, educate people on sickle cell anemia, because sickle cell anemia is a disease that it's very debilitating. Like anybody who has it, it might sound like, oh, it's just the red blood cells can't carry enough oxygen, but if your red blood cells can't carry enough oxygen, that can cause so many problems. I know people with sickle cell anemia and it's rough for them. So this was really important, especially for children, because children are not able to handle pain as well as adults can. Okay. And then in 1966, she and her colleagues established a foundation to continue research into sickle cell. By 1970, Dr. Francis's clinic had screened over 20,000 children for the disease and started prescribing antibiotics. So can you imagine how many kids, 20,000 children with sickle cell anemia? That is a lot. That is a whole lot of kids to have this disease. It's just so crazy. And imagine the pain that they're going through, because this disease is very painful, very debilitating. If you have sickle cell, you can go days in the hospital being treated for the pain, because really that's all they can treat you for is the pain, because there is research going on, but I'm not sure that they've reached the point where they can completely cure sickle cell anemia. So, and on March 28th, 2016, Dr. Frances McBarnette, she passed away at the age of 89. So in all her years of life, she dedicated her life to studying, helping kids, doing her research, and she was able to find out that, hey, antibiotics can treat these kids with sickle cell anemia, which is amazing. So the next person that I want to talk about is Mary Seacole. Mary Seacole is one of those people in Jamaica that you know about, or you maybe don't know exactly what she did, but you know about her because I think there's a hall on UIS campus on Mona campus in Jamaica that is called Mary Seacole Hall. That's the nurses' hall. So she is very big in Jamaica. So Mary Seacole was born Mary Joan Grant in Kingston, Jamaica, in 1805 to a Creole mother and a Scottish father. She inherited her love for medicine and helping people from her mother, who was a nurse at the Up Park camp in Kingston. At the age of 12, she was able to observe and help her mother in treating people, and it led her to wanting to help people. But unfortunately, in 1850, Mary Seacole was a victim to the cholera epidemic in Jamaica. And then when she got over it, she went to Panama and she set up a hotel with her brother. And while there, she was diagnosed with what might have been the first case of cholera to appear in that region. So she had cholera. I guess she never knew that she had cholera in Jamaica, and then she went to Panama, and then she got diagnosed with this illness. And by records, it's showing that she may have been the first person with cholera in the region. But then in 1853, when yellow fever raged in Jamaica, she came back to Jamaica to help. And by 1854, she returned back to Panama, and her arrival coincided with the cholera epidemic in Panama. So can you imagine? She came back to Jamaica to help during the yellow fever epidemic, and then when she finished her job, she went back to Panama, and it's cholera now in Panama. She aided medically by treating the people with cholera victims, and she was also known as the yellow woman from Jamaica with the cholera medicine. And then later in 1853, when Turkey declared war on Russia and intense fighting was taking place in the Crimea Peninsula, she decided to offer her services. Many soldiers were dying, and not only from war wounds, but also illnesses such as cholera and dysentery. She believed that her experience with these diseases would be of value in Crimea. She wrote a letter to Florence Nightingale, but unfortunately Florence never did appear, man. Florence said, "You girl, me not have time for you." Florence did not reply to any of her messages. She decided to go on her own, and she used the assets that she had built up in Panama, go to the Crimea Peninsula to help on her own. She set up a facility that people refer to as the mess table or the British hotel, and she provided medical aid, food, and other services used mainly by officers, so people in the military who were in the war. She Seacole would set out carrying medical supplies and food, and she arrived at the battlefield at dawn. So even though she set up a little hotel or a little place where people could come and get treatment, she actually went into the battlefield early in the morning to help these soldiers who maybe weren't able to move on their own to get to where she was. This activity was very, very risky, and she was devoted to her cause. So this did not stop her any at all from doing what she needed to do. And in return, when it was all said and done, she was in debt. Her debt was up to her neck with everything that was going on. However, the British Commander-in-Chief of Crimea Forces and the Duke of Wellington and Newcastle organized a 4-day festival of music and gave her the proceeds so she could pay off her debt. Unfortunately, Mary Seacole died in England in 1881. But even though she died a hero. She helped in any way that she could. And this is what the medical field is all about: helping, being there for people in their most vulnerable states, and letting them know that, hey, I am here for you to help you. Because I mean, she didn't have to do all of this, she didn't have to. She had a nice thing going on in Panama, and she was back and forth between Panama and Jamaica. She had a nice thing going on in that region, and she saw what was happening, and she said, hey, let me go and help, which is amazing. And finally, the third person that we are going to talk about today is Dr. Cicely Williams. Now, let me just say this before I talk about Dr. Cicely Williams. I knew about her, but I did not know that she went through this much. And her story is amazing, amazing. So, Dr. Cicely Williams, she was born Cicely Delphine Williams, and she was born December 2nd, 1893. The Williams family lived in Kew Park in the town of Darlington, Westmoreland, Jamaica. Her father was James Rowland Williams. He was a landowner and the island's director of education. And her mother, Margaret Emily Caroline Farewell, operated an informal health clinic from the back veranda of their home. Williams helped her mother with clinical tasks at an early age, gaining an appreciation for the common ailments affecting infants born into poverty. At the age of 13, she went to England for boarding school, and at 19, she was accepted into Somerville College in Oxford. She deferred her education at Oxford University due to a series of natural disasters in Jamaica, so she had to stop, come back to Jamaica, and help to rebuild her home and her community. After her father's death, she returned to England, preparing to study to become a nurse. But when she came back to Jamaica, she conditioned her mind to say, I'm just going to go back and do nursing. But due to World War I going on at that time, there was not enough men doing medicine. So the university said to her, you are going to be studying medicine now, not nursing. So by the time World War I ended, she completed her MD course and she worked at many hospitals, most notably Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where she worked with Dr. Helen Mackay. Dr. Mackay inspired Cicely to focus on women and children's health with a hands-on family and community-centered approach. So Williams spent a year in Salonika, Greece, helping refugees from the Turco-Greek War. And while she was helping during the war, she met Dr. Andrija Stampar. He was from Croatia, and he specialized in social medicine. And he taught Williams to take a socioeconomic approach in treating patients. So this basically means that if she's going to be treating a patient or coming up with a treatment plan for a patient, she has to take into consideration their socioeconomic standard. Can they afford this medication? What can I do? How can I incorporate their daily life into their treatment plan? Stuff like that. So after she was doing her she was working in helping in the Turco-Greek War. She returned to England and she took a course in tropical medicine and signed up with the Colonial Medical Service. Her first assignment was the Gold Coast in Ghana. Now this is going to be very important. This Ghana story is going to be very, 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 very important. So while she was in Ghana, she listened to the local speaking of kwashiorkor, translated as the disease of the disposed child, in children who have been weaned from breast milk when their mother birthed a new infant. So basically, the locals were talking about a type of illness that was happening in kids who should be breastfeeding, but because their mother just had another child, the mother can't be breastfeeding that child as well. So they have to wean them off, but then they see that there's something wrong with these kids who are being weaned off for the new baby. So her reasoning was that the kids were not getting enough protein. So while she was listening to the locals talking about this, she said, hey, maybe these kids are not getting enough protein in their diet. And she did her research, and after ruling out other probable causes, she concluded that kwashiorkor was due to a mother's lack of knowledge of nutrition. So she shared her findings in a paper published in 1933 in the journal Archives of Disease in Childhood. The paper was poorly received, and the leading physician on nutrition, on African nutrition, so this man who claimed that he was the expert on African nutrition, he disagreed with her findings. He said that this research don't make any sense and I'm not supporting it. Then she wrote an even more detailed paper comparing pellagra and kwashiorkor, and she published it in the Lancet. So for those who are wondering, what is pellagra? Pellagra is a disease that is caused by a deficiency in niacin, and niacin is vitamin B3. Opinions were still set against their findings, but later research proved her findings true. So you see, the people that work against Dr. Williams, but Dr. Williams did what she needed to do because she believed in it, and she said, hey, this is what is happening to the kids. I am here, I'm seeing it. She did her research, she published it. Doctors were against her, but later it was proved to be true. While all of this was happening, she was still being doubted by her superiors, especially because she was a woman and she was a small-time doctor. So she wasn't a doctor with, at that time, she never had any big accomplishments or any big thing to her name to say people can believe what she's saying. But she did her research and her research was true, but doctors just didn't believe her. After that, she persisted in finding a cure for patients and a regime for mothers a regime that mothers can use to prevent kwashiorkor. After 7 years of work, she was reprimanded and transferred to the University of Singapore. It was University of Singapore, which was in British Malaya, which is now Malaysia. And all of this happened in 1939. So they completely stripped her from this research that she was doing and sent her to Malaysia. While she was in Malaysia, she taught and she became acting state medical officer, and she set up women and children health service in the poorer areas of the city. There she discovered Nestle representatives, which were young women who had on lab coats, and they were promoting condensed milk to young mothers as an alternative to breast milk. Can you believe that? The lengths that these companies will go. Even though they were doing this in Malaysia, it was illegal and prohibited from doing in Europe. Nestle could not do this in Europe, but they went to the poor countries, the colonies, to do this. So while she made this discovery, she made a speech to the Rotary Club, and she termed this act as milk and murder. So while she was talking to them, she named this whole speech that she was doing, talking about how Nestle was telling the mothers to use condensed milk as a replacement for breast milk. She termed it as milk and murder. It was a long campaign, and Nestle ended up being boycotted a couple of years after. It took a really long time for them to be boycotted. It didn't just happen like that. And in 1940, World War II was in full effect, and Japan had invaded British Malaya. Williams moved sick children and mothers into makeshift shelters and moved them with Malayan families to keep them safe from the Japanese advancements. However, she was captured and held captive in a prison. She cared for female prisoners, and during that time, she delivered many babies, and she encouraged the mothers to breastfeed. Thus, all babies were alive. None of the babies died. However, the Japanese, they didn't like this. They didn't like that this lady was in the camp helping these women and bringing new life. Like, they've never liked the fact that them come in, capture these people, and these people are getting pregnant, and the babies are surviving. So they completely moved her from the female prison camp, and they moved her into a cell with men, only men. She wasn't tortured, but she offered her service the best way she can to the men and help them recover from any diseases, any cuts, any bruises, in the best way that she could. However, while she was there in the prison camp with the men, she suffered malnutrition and dysentery, and she lost up to a third of her body weight. She also had beriberi, which is a thiamine deficiency that numbed her feet to this day. Like, foot numb, can't walk. Then after this happened, they returned her back to the women's camp, and then the Japanese ended up surrendering in 1945, and she was immediately taken to a hospital. In 1948, she was appointed as the head of mother and child health at the World Health Organization. She went on to receive many awards and recognition for all her research and all her help in helping mothers and infants. Dr. Cicely Williams died on July 13, 1992. So this is the end of me talking about these three women who have contributed to medicine, and you can tell by everything that I talk about, these women were pioneers, they were leaders, they never listened when people doubted them, they were faced with many hardships, they were turned down, they were reprimanded, they were sent away, but they persevered and they believed in what they were doing, and they continued and they kept the faith. And to this day, their practices are now being used in medicine across the globe. Because if Dr. Cicely Williams didn't go to Ghana and she didn't listen to what the locals were saying, she wouldn't have known about kwashiorkor, and she wouldn't have known how to treat kwashiorkor. And if Mary Seacole if she had just said, okay, Florence didn't answer my letters, I'm not going to go. If she just stayed, she maybe wouldn't have reached her full potential, which was going to the war and helping. And Dr. McBarnette, if she didn't persevered, if she had just taken that turn down from Yale, she wouldn't have become a doctor. She wouldn't have persevered and tried other means of getting there. She would have just stopped where she was and then went on to do something else, and then maybe we probably would have never have the treatment for sickle cell anemia in kids. So these ladies have done it, and they're a testament that anything is possible once you put your mind to it and you trust and believe in yourself. Because believe these women believed in themselves, and that is why they reach where they have reached. And now I can talk about them, and I feel so proud that they're Jamaicans. I didn't even know all of this about these people until I did my research. I will link below the links that you can read, and if you want to do more reading upon these women, because it's amazing to see, to read about your history and know about your history. So thank you all for watching. Next week or the next video, I will be talking about 3 more people, and then that's part 2, and then there's a part 3 for this month. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something like I have learned. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, send it to everybody that you know, because there's something to be proud about, and it's these people who have put us on the map. So thank you guys once again, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.